So this is what I've been working on. This is a selection from a chapter of the book that I've been writing that's based on the classes that I teach called the Deep Dive. They're a series of creativity classes. This chapter is on finding your true north. So here's just a piece of that. I just wrote this. When I was a kid, a small kid, still in single digits, I remember waking up in the middle of the night because I was homesick. That's what I called it. I distinctly remember feeling deeply sad and missing home. Now, I often woke up paralyzed with fear because I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of bugs, so sometimes I started awake petrified that a bug was crawling across my body. Despite growing up in central Missouri, where the summer air is so thick it's practically a living thing, I refused to sleep without covers for exactly this reason. I was also afraid of a random man dressed in black with a ski mask who I was sure was plotting to come snatch me from my home. I had never met such a man, I just believed that he existed, and he was coming for me. I would try to flatten myself into the mattress, certain that if I could make myself paper thin, he wouldn't notice me lying there, and he'd take my sister instead. Not that I wanted her gone, I didn't. But in my terror, I had adopted a very pragmatic view. It was either me or her, we shared a room, and, well, so be it. Certain sacrifices had to be made. But none of this was heavy as the homesickness. That was a sadness, a deep sadness, coupled with fear, a dark weight that kept me awake all night. In retrospect, I see the differences between the childlike fears we all carry, like the cockroaches and the scary man in the black mask. However unreasonable or unlikely, the difference between that and real human anxiety is vast. This homesick feeling pinned me to a bed in a different way, and the tears would sneak out of the corners of my eyes and onto my Snoopy pillowcase. The homesickness was exactly what we all know. We've experienced it, that insistent ache for the warm embrace of our own home, the place and the people where we know we can drop our burdens and just be. The homesickness is a feeling that everything around us is foreign. We're in a place that we don't understand, and that lack of understanding makes us very, very alone. Now, this would be a feeling you might expect from a child who'd recently moved, or a kid who was away at sleepaway camp for the first time, or who was coping with the uncharted waters of familial loss. But I was none of those. My parents were married, we lived in the same house I'd been born into, I was even in the same bedroom. They stayed in that house until I was well out of college. None of this made any sense. I don't have an explanation for this sadness. I was a scared kid who, also, perhaps by virtue of the books that I read and the characters that I idolized, was determined to face all my fears head on and show no weakness. My dad used to say to me, "Don't cry, you don't have anything to cry about," as a way of comforting me when I was upset. I took that suggestion quite literally and did everything I could to never cry, to be brave in spite of myself. As I said, I don't have a logical explanation for any of this homesickness. Sometimes I think maybe my parents were anxious about things that they shielded me from, and I, thanks to my empathic nature, absorbed that unknowingly. Sometimes I think I was a weird kid who just didn't know how to be ordinary in this small, rural Midwestern town. I was a kid trying my damnedest to be like all the other kids that I saw, but I couldn't line all the pieces up just right. And the thing is, I think, when we are out of alignment with our true nature, I think we develop this homesickness. While we're holding tight to the same lifelines that everybody else is, they aren't saving us because our lifelines look different. And as adults, we do all kinds of things to stave off this feeling. We feed it with lots of comfort food and booze and drugs. We buy more things that will make us feel safer, bigger houses, fancier gadgets, sparklier jewelry, nicer cars. We collect trips or experiences like some people collect postage stamps. We become marathoners or work on the black belt or become yogis, and these experiences are more to add to our collections. More things like this line up before us to remind us that we must be doing it right. If we have all of those things, we're doing it the right way. And all these collections try to feed our homesick selves, but all they do is create a short, immediate burst of relief, a dopamine rush. And then we're off to buy the next plane ticket, sign up for the next marathon, shop for the next piece of jewelry. I couldn't tell you exactly when the sleepless nights went away, but I do remember that by the time I'd moved to my own bedroom in the attic of our little bungalow, I was no longer homesick. I still found myself awake late into the night, but for far different reasons. I'd found words by then. I was reading voraciously, and for every book I read, I would write my own version of the story. Pure, childlike mimicry. I didn't want my favorite stories to end, so I kept them going. Anne of Green Gables had more adventures. Bilbo Baggins was drawn out of his hobbit hole yet again, and the Boxcar Children faced yet another challenge to their sovereignty. Nighttime became a window for me to extract another chapter of adventures from my friends, the characters in my books. I think I stopped feeling homesick because I figured out how to keep my compass pointed at true north. I found my flow. I felt less like a stranger in a foreign land. For the last 11 months, I've been writing this book in fits and starts. I sit down after days of teaching exactly the material I'm trying to share here, and I can't write. That's not true. I do write. I write things that bore me to tears. I can't hardly stand to write it, much less ask anyone else to read it. For Valentine's Day, my husband gave me a weekend away. Why on earth do you need a weekend away? The Wanda inside of me asks. You don't have kids. You have a beautiful home. You work from home, for God's sake. Why do you need to get away? Because I was homesick. It happens. I'd lost my flow. I'd gotten sidetracked. And you know how I noticed? Because I started spending a lot more time on social media, paying inordinate amounts of attention to what everyone else was doing. I found millions of reasons to run to the store. I made so many Target runs that I burned a path there with my tires. Sometimes I think my husband sees these things before I do, and so he nudged. And I took myself up to a cabin on Lake Superior, turned off the Wi-Fi, and slowly, as I unwound into my books and my words, the homesickness ebbed. And here we are, a few weeks later. We're on a global lockdown. And while the introvert in me feels guiltily a little happy that I'm forced to spend days on end in my house with nothing but my books and my pets and my writing to sustain me, this is also unprecedented. And I can't help reaching for my phone every so often just to check on the newest counts. The number of infected, the number of recoveries, the number of states on stay-at-home orders, the number of deaths. I tell my students, look, we all get pulled away. Life happens, you know. Babies are born, family members get sick, jobs get more demanding, global pandemics happen, and we respond because we have to. How then do we course correct? How do we pivot and get back to the flow? How do you notice that you're off to begin with? I don't know the answer to that. I'm beginning to know the answer for myself. But what I do know in this moment is that we have to figure it out. I have to figure out, and I have to pay such close attention to what is feeding me and what is depleting me. Now more than ever, our health is paramount. If our bodies are systems, we have to keep all the systems well, which means not just social distancing and keeping our hearts and our tickers in good working order. It means taking care of our emotions and taking care of our mental health and taking care of our spirits, because our spirits, our healthy spirits, will bolster our healthy bodies. Thank you.